Thanks for letting us present today. The UK Overseas Territories Conservation Forum has gained so much from this group, and just great to be here. We work across the overseas territories and Crown Dependencies, and when we were founded over 30 years ago, it was really to create an NGO, if there wasn't one already in the overseas territories, and really so that that environmental body could run itself. And while now most have one, we're always reminded that these NGOs need to be strong and ready to deal with and mobilise resources at any a moment's notice, because the challenges just keep coming. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the project work we've been supporting, be it through grant writing, admin, financial support, and what work's coming up, how this fits into global conservation efforts, and how talking to each other at events like this is really important for future work. While the situation might be entirely different on Montserrat, where my story begins, there are shared challenges and opportunities that can be explored within an island context. Okay, so Montserrat is one of the UK's overseas territories in the Eastern Caribbean. As is Sark, it's just a stone's throw from France, and I am of course talking about Guadeloupe, that you can see on a good day. So its biodiversity is outstanding. I think my favourite habitat has to be the tropical dry forest, one of the rarest on Earth. And the island's main civil society body is the Montserrat National Trust. When it was first created in the 70s, it was mainly an expat body, so I'm told, but over the last few decades, there's been a lack of tangible ways that Montserratians could engage with the National Trust, get involved in work, so they wanted to focus on creating some. This was Adopt a Home for Wildlife project, funded through the UK government's Darwin Plus Fund, a fund dedicated to the overseas territories.
Home for Wildlife.
My partner, Mrs. Dalmore Ryan, explains this project much better than I can.
Home for Wildlife project is very important to Montserrat's biodiversity, and its aim is really to encourage all our committees, everybody in our community, to manage the wildlife in their area, whether it's in your home, in your backyard, whether it's part of your community organization, whether it's a school, whether it's the playground. And it's really about helping us to have sustainability, following much of what we would have lost through the volcano on the southern part of the island. It's enriching this side of the island that we have a chance to call home.
So the sites across the island were representative of habitat types and different management. Although Montserrat's not signed up to the Convention on Biological Diversity, the work of the Trust is ambitious and is aligned with those targets. In 2010, CBD's Aichi targets, so target 11, stated that 17% of terrestrial and inland water and marine areas, 10% of marine areas, especially areas of particular importance for biodiversity and ecosystem services, are conserved through effectively and equitably managed ecological, representative and well-connected systems of protected areas and other effective area-based conservation measures, and integrated into the wider landscapes and seascapes. Now, it wasn't until 2015 that the IUCN put forward guidance on what these other area-based effective conservation measures were. OECMs are areas that achieve the long-term effective in situ conservation of biodiversity, but are outside of statutory protected areas. The interesting part for many was that these could be in areas, and this is the important bit, where conservation was not the primary focus. OECMs are not the panacea, as management, resources monitoring guidance are still needed. What they can do is recognise non-statutory conserved areas and the communities that conserve them into global targets. The World Centre for Protected Areas now has online tools for recording the extent of not just protected areas, but OECMs as well. What was surprising to me when researching this a little bit more was that globally OECMs are being listed or proposed as anything from World Heritage Sites, Ramsar Sites, Biosphere Reserves, decontaminated areas, harbours, sacred grounds, for example churches, across Italy, for example, surf breaks, former hunting areas, areas adjacent to farmland, corridors or expansion buffer zones of protected areas, given that geographical ranges of certain species may be shifting because of climate change. So, do OECMs give us greater flexibility? IUCN Protected Areas Group has just recently launched a tool for identifying candidate OECMs, and I've not read it yet, but some of the early critics of the process are some of the co-authors, so I have a little bit of faith in this. Back to the plot. So this network of sites across Montserrat could be potentially conserved areas within the island, but even if they don't become OECMs, they follow the guidance and the best practice. Just on the map here, it's quite the big gap here. It's obviously the area, the 2/3 of the island where there's no settlements because of the volcanic eruption. So there wasn't really a hard and fast rule about who could become an adopter, but we wanted to make sure that those we worked with created a network of sites across the island. The first year we conducted plant and invertebrate surveys, and with this information we created a basic management plan. About 1,500 plant records were obtained on these sites, and I can't emphasise enough how little data there is on Montserrat's wildlife and plant communities, so it felt like a big deal. Should say that this is still, So we've also launched a kids club for primary school children and undertook a survey of attitudes towards biodiversity on the island to try and tease out where we could really focus our efforts. Many recognise that the island's green, and it is very green, was not necessarily the green that they grew up with. This added a bit of weight to what we anecdotally knew we thought about the dominance of invasive non-native plant species across the island. So that was our target, so really recording where possible and then controlling or using the invasive species of plants, talking about things like neem, Java plum, mango, papaya. Things started to snowball in 2022 when we started another project, which was a UKRI funded project, which was led by UKOTCF, who many of you know. So this was looking at traditional knowledge of plants on island, how they could contribute to better outcomes for biodiversity and for people as well. Published booklets developed with information gathered using oral history training, and the wonderful folk at the island's retirement home have lots of recordings of them talking about traditional use of plants from their younger days. Much of this knowledge was not really being passed on to the younger generations, and we wanted to address this. There's quite a few other outputs, including a framework of equitable and effective research. As this project came to an end after 15 months, and there were lots of spin-offs, as there always is, and ideas generated, we developed a new Darwin application. A central theme was really to develop a toolkit for biodiversity and human well-being, linking the two, and community members were constantly approaching the trust and asking them for information and advice, and they wanted an opportunity to provide information for them all to access, for example, planners, landscapers, homeowners, etc., what they should be doing in their areas. So this is a 3-year project, and it's got 5 areas of work. The first is to develop the toolkit itself, and partners will carry out consultations and focus groups to develop the toolkit, and using this it will be trialled across several sites across the island to make sure that it's fit for purpose. Uses a model that was developed in the UK, but much of the time spent on this project is going to be adapting it to the local context. The second element is a young persons programme, and this first came about when we were on a live radio show. We had a real grilling from the teenagers. They were like, hey, you've got this kids club, what about us, what do we do? So yeah, you've got to love a teenager. So we really listened to them, and we're making them a real focus of this project. So partners will expand the Trust's youth programme and talk a bit about the the Young UN Global Alliance, Younger, and we're also going to hold a higher education evening annually. And then we're going to develop the Montserrat biological collections and information, including first on island herbarium, and citizen science will be expanded. There's also going to be an expansion of the botanic gardens and outreach. And I'll finish really with 3 elements of all this work that I need to mention in the context of Iiem, and I hope in some way something I've mentioned might light a spark. First is about big data. So it was a huge relief when John mentioned iNaturalist yesterday, because I thought, oh no. Yeah, so this is really what we've been looking at for Montserrat, and I love the fact that this one was created by 2 MSc students, which I think is brilliant, and it's now used all over the world. So in Montserrat, there were about 150 records when we started, just over a year ago. And as you can see now, it's about 3,500 records. So how did we do this? Generally, I think the iNaturalist hold a BioBlitz, which really generates interest on island, and it's really, I think there are now 85 observers adding records all the time. So what happens is, as John, I think, and Matt, I think it was yesterday, was showing, these are the kind of records that can be generated when they become research grade, which means you have to have a general consensus from, I think, at least three people agreeing with your ID. Second was really about looking around and around the room and seeing what resources you have. So Lee, don't want to embarrass you, but this was Lee Morris this year, went out to Montserrat for a couple of weeks. And the Trust really wanted to refresh and enhance its horticultural training, and for the staff, for the government, and for the wider community. So this was really well received, and this sort of matchmaking is so valuable. And please do have a look at our website, our latest newsletter and news blog. The Minister for Environment in the bottom right hand corner, that's his mango that he grafted, which he's very, very proud of, by the way, and I think it's still alive. So. There we go. The third is about initiatives that really fit the bill. Why reinvent the wheel? So the Young UN Global Alliance, Younger, seems to be just what we were looking for this time last year, and I think it was Karen from the Guernsey Ladies College that gave the presentation about this, and I was just like, wonderful, this is exactly what I was looking for. So contacted her after, and she's been really helpful, and as a result we're picking this up and developing Younger Montserrat, which is a series of badges that young people can work towards, which is just fantastic, a sort of certification system, which was just brilliant. So thank you. I don't think I would have found this in such a short time, and included it in an application in the October, and then won the money, and now we can run with it. And the fourth and final thing is really about taking opportunities that are presented to you. So Jersey International Centre for Advanced Studies, who I know a lot of you know, supporting a lot of master's students from across the world, but has really opened the door to overseas territory students as well, and obviously future Crown Dependency researchers. So this year one of my colleagues from Montserrat will be studying at JICAS, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. So the research element of this project that I've just set out, both projects will be undertaken by me with JICAS. So yeah, take your opportunities, but be kind to yourself as well. That's just what I wanted to add. But also together with the University of Gibraltar, which is also a very new institution, we're exploring an early career research network for the overseas territories and Crown Dependencies to share research, to peer-to-peer learning, have opportunities that way as well. So yeah, just wanted to highlight some of the things that we've really gained, even though we're a bit of an outlier in this group. We've learned so much, and we've been able to collaborate and find ways of working and not reinventing things over and over. So yeah, I guess that must have spoken really fast because I didn't hear the bell. So thank you, Iiem, for over the years, and and thank you as well to all my colleagues on Montserrat for protecting the special place it is. So yeah, that's it from me.